in Hillsdale. I'd like to follow up on an email that I submitted to the mayor and council last week regarding the summer concerts. Normally at this time of the year, I'd have most of the bookings done, be doing the publicity, and I'd come and tell you what the lineup of bands would be. I've been doing this for 10 years, since 2011. I was appointed first by Max Arnowitz, and it's continued. First year, we ran several concerts in the center of town featuring local talent. And that has always been our focus, to showcase local talent, small town America, friends, family, neighbors getting together to enjoy a nice evening out in the park. Not trying to create a rock concert atmosphere, not trying to bring in tribute bands. As many people know, the Recreation Department of the town does not provide monetary support, and a lot of those bands are prohibitive in costs. So we're clearly limited as to what we can do. Year in, year out, I've relied on the support of small businesses to fund the concerts, along with the Hillsdale Emergency Services, Fire Department, PBA, Ambulance Corps, and then the Hillsdale professionals, the engineers, attorneys, insurance agents, and others that work for the town. Over the years, I've tried to introduce things that would be rather innovative and fun. We had a number of Hillsdale's Got Talent, young people's concerts, family fun night with a children's entertainer, clowns, face painters, and such, followed usually by a big band concert. We had dedicated sponsor nights. Sponsors were invited to come down to have tables, information tables, welcome the bands, introduce their businesses, whatever we could do to promote them. New business nights, same thing. Any new business 1 or 2 years old in town was welcome to come down, set up a table. We made up little brochures for them so people could take them home and hopefully think of supporting them when they'd go about their errands. We had the Demarest Farms Petting Zoo for a number of years, free yoga classes in the park with Mary Elena Baez Dominguez and Jaluka Yoga Studios, Parkinson's awareness nights. We had a sponsors garden set up with signage for all the sponsors at every concert. And we had collections for the Hillsdale Helping Hand Food Pantry, non-perishable food items, cash donations, and the volunteer service. So concert goers contributed to the purchase of the new ambulance. So it was in 2019 that the borough made the decision to transfer the concerts from Veterans Park in the center of town to Beechwood Park. And as we know, the small businesses are very much solicited. It's scouts, it's schools, it's seniors, it's churches, you name it, the organizations come knocking at their doors. I always said I would never promise anything I couldn't deliver, and most of the businesses, signed on, especially the restaurants. And as we know, the COVID-19 pandemic negatively impacted all of our lives, but especially hurt the small businesses throughout the country, I would say. Hillsdale is no different. So I think that this year, more than ever, it's important that we show our support. It was my idea not to solicit the businesses again. I usually leave a small nest egg year to year in the concert account, and then hope that the emergency services and the town professionals would be very generous in supporting the concerts. So I sent this email because I was having trouble getting in touch and really having conversations with, I guess you'd say, people in authority.
Please make sure you keep your children out of the water. I'd like to also remind everybody that we're conducting our village elections tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
We owe the businesses a debt of gratitude. We can promote them a little better and hopefully, launch them to, a new level of productivity, if you will.
Many of them haven't fully opened.
And
I just feel that that's the way to go. And I brought up a few other points which are less important right now. I got some comments about hiring tribute bands and what have you. I mentioned earlier, they can be $4,000, which is probably more than half of what I spend for everything. $4,000 for one night's entertainment, rain or shine. So I'm just bringing this to your attention. I feel very strongly about it. I feel it's important that we show our support to the businesses and we move the concerts to Veterans Park. I have a meeting scheduled on Wednesday, 9 a.m. with the Borough Administrator and Patty Hughes. And Mayor Rocco, you're most welcome if you're available to attend. Any of the other council members that would like to attend, I would say you're welcome. Or if you have any ideas to share with me,
I'd also welcome them. Thank you, Elizabeth.
I do look forward to the meeting that we have scheduled later this week.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to address the council? Mr. Oosting. Mr. Oosting.
There we go. Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Benjamin. I'm a Hillsdale resident. I want to thank the council for a couple of things to start. First, thank you for continuing to provide virtual access to these meetings. Maintaining this access means that folks who may find it difficult to attend council meetings in person are able to participate in this great democratic process. So thank you for that. Second, I want to thank Council President Lundy and members of the council who voted in support of the Pride Month proclamation. In both my private and professional life, I see how impactful statements of support for the LGBTQ plus community can be. Acknowledgement of the need to be vocal about the challenges that the community faces with regards to their human and civil rights cannot be understated. I imagine too that there was some pushback against you for the proclamation, and so I thank you doubly. To those representatives whose voting records aren't supportive of the community, please help us understand. Mayor, you said you'd be speaking to the Pride Month proclamation. Help us understand why. Despite extraordinary breadth and depth of research and lived experience that shows how damaging the continuation of the dehumanization of the members of this community truly is, representatives continue to deny them equality. If your family was at risk in direct response to your representative policies, wouldn't you be upset? Wouldn't you do anything you could within your rights to protect your family? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oosting. Ms. Traeger. Lisa Traeger.
Hello, I'm here to speak on two issues. Right now, I believe the only topics are new business. So first, I want to speak in support of the LGBT rights proposal. I think it is important as a citizen, as a mother, as a resident. I am in full support, and I hope that Mayor and Council will be too. Aside from that, I'm here to speak on the marijuana dispensary, but I think that comes later in the agenda. Okay, and then number three, just a note, in trying to find the link to tonight's meeting, I found it somewhat difficult and very not user-friendly the way the website is set up. And as a professional,
What happened?
Herb, people, I'm trying to unmute you if you want to unmute yourself.
which by the way, there is none because I turned that on. And so if you could kindly pull that link up to that first page and make it interactive, so because that's the whole point, rather than making people copy and paste it. So that's that point.
And Ms. Traeger, I maybe I misunderstood, but I can say this. The first page of each agenda that we put out has the link on it. And I know me getting onto tonight's meeting, I simply click on that link. Maybe it's because I have Zoom downloaded as an application on my laptop, and it automatically just goes to the meeting room. But
Yeah,
I'll
you have to click a few links down to find the link to the Zoom meeting, and it could be better placed more where you have the information about the cable access, which is a couple clicks up from where it is today.
I'm sure the clerk will re-examine it and then come to an adequate outcome. Denise, is that okay with you? We'll reconsider that, Lisa.
I appreciate it. I will stand by till the next point in the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. King. Jeff King.
Hi, can you hear me?
The first
Yes,
was-
Mr. King.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Jeffrey King. I'm at 24 Elizabeth Parkway in Eatontown. And I also wanted to echo what the last commenter, Ms. Traeger, said about alternative lifestyles. Pride Month proclamation, I support that. I support compassion and acceptance of all the different kinds of folks that are in all of our families and our lives. It's a good way to be. I also support the cannabis dispensaries, especially for medical patients. I know that'll be later, so appreciate your allowing people to speak on that. And I do also agree that finding the Zoom link sometimes is hard, and sometimes it's easy when I look to communicate with a community that's considering their options on cannabis. I sometimes can get right in, and sometimes it's very challenging. So I appreciate it when care is taken to allow for invite public participation. It's really forms a consensus, and the community is better off in the long run when all the stakeholders are allowed to participate in the decision making. So thank you for your consideration on all of that.
Thank you, Mr. King. Anyone else like to address the council? Denise, you see anyone? I don't.
Either.
Nothing?
No.
Okay. All right, let's close the public initial public comment period and move to recognition of correspondence. We have a letter from the Hillsdale Volunteer Fire Department requesting permission to hold its annual carnival.
Questions regarding recyclables, it's posted on our website, and you could also call Village Hall and they'll gladly email you the information.
It's on the website.
But it's on the website for sure.
Sorry, we're going back to Atlantic Beach. We're going to be jumping around a little bit here.
Glass, not in this card. No, it's
This
not.
is
It's not
Atlantic
in the
Beach, New
question.
York, Long Island.
Well, just Emily brought up glass. Glass again is not recyclable right now. As I said in previous meetings, glass is a contaminant to the other recyclables that we commingle.
All right, so we'll be back to
So,
the ordinance in a
Glass is
minute.
put into your regular garbage due to
Hillsdale.
the fact that it would bring down the value of the cardboard and the paper and the plastic. So glass is not recyclable in the village of Atlantic Beach. Why aren't the minutes from previous meetings posted, including the one from May? The minutes from the May meeting will be approved by the village board this evening. And once we approve them, the village clerk could then post them on the website, which will be pretty much tomorrow, Emily. So we cannot post minutes that have not been approved by the village board as they're incomplete. And it takes a month for them to be approved in public. So that's the process that we go through to post minutes on the website. That's it. All the questions I received we received this month. So we're going to continue with the meeting now. The first resolution would be the fee for food trucks. As you know, we discussed at the last meeting of permitting any food trucks that want to. We already have a permit for like an ice cream truck and things like that, and we expanded it. Steve, do you want to explain how we expanded the local law?
Sure, we adopted chapter 117 for food trucks and vending. Anyone that wants to sell products from a food truck, we have an application process. The board has to approve the fee process. There's some rules as far as signage, where they could actually park their vehicles.
Waste receptacles, right?
Yeah, garbage
That's right.
receptacles, noise, signs, all that stuff.
Insurance.
Yeah, well, that's part of
Right,
insurance, the car, the vehicles, the driver's license, all that.
So I'd like to recommend to the board that we set the price for this one season, for the 2021 season, at $50 per occurrence per food truck. Does anybody have any comments or questions, board? Does everyone want to make that resolution for $50 per occurrence per truck?
I'll make that resolution.
I'll second.
Resolution was by Linda, second by Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. The next resolution is to add an address to section 58, block 62, lot 133. It's a vacant land. The property size is 20 feet by 3 feet. It's 1591 Bay Boulevard. Steve, do you want to describe this parcel a little bit?
Okay. This is a small parcel of property between Bay Boulevard and the Park Street dead end adjacent to Vernon. Someone has purchased this piece of land. It's not really accessible. And they need an address for it for a tax bill and other information to go to. So we've assigned a house number and the board has a resolution to approve it.
So we're going to make a resolution to approve the address for section 58, block 62, lot 133, to become 1591 Bay Boulevard. Trish made the motion. Anybody second?
I'll second.
Ed seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Emily, unanimous. We have two more resolutions that are not on the agenda, but they need to be put into tonight's meeting. I'd like to make a resolution to call a public hearing at our July meeting for the village to consider a change to local law 165, property maintenance. And again, I'm asking Steve to just explain that to the village residents.
Currently, chapter 165-4 is responsibility of property owners for maintaining their property. The code's a little old. It has some information that's outdated. So we're looking to update that in order to the village to act quickly, to have properties cleaned up instead of going through a process.
Funding by
that's
the state.
currently in our local law that drags out.
So basically, we're looking to shorten the timeline for the village to be able to get properties cleaned up in the village.
Does everyone make the motion to hold a public hearing? Andy made it. Yes, then have a public hearing at next meeting. Andy made the motion, and a second. Linda seconded it. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Another resolution is pursuant to chapter 165 in village law to authorize the village to have maintenance performed subject to the notice requirements of chapter 165. I'm gonna have three separate motions, but I can carry them all at once. No, I'll do it all at one time. The first property we're going to have this for is 2094 Pacific Boulevard. So I'm gonna make a motion to have property maintenance performed at 2094 Pacific Boulevard. It's 2094, correct? Yes. Yes. Ed made the motion, by seconded. Linda seconded. All in favor? Aye. The second property would be 177 Coronado. For the village to perform property maintenance subject to the notice requirements of chapter 165. Does everyone want to make that motion? Trish made the motion. Does everyone want to second that?
Hi.
Linda seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
And the third property.
All in favor?
For
Hi.
property maintenance to be performed subject to notice requirements of chapter 165 will be 116.
I'm going to make that motion to have property maintenance performed subject to chapter 165. Ed made the motion. Anybody second? Andy seconded. All in favor? Hi. Okay. Hi.
We've all had an opportunity to review the bills for the previous months. Everybody want to make a motion to approve the bills? Trish made the motion. Everybody want to second that?
Well, second.
Approval to approve the bills.
Okay.
Trish made the motion and Linda seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
We've all had an opportunity to review the minutes from the May 2021 meetings. Everyone make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 2021 village board meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Andy made the motion. Trish seconded. All in favor?
Well, I abstain.
Oh, Linda has
I
to
was
abstain.
there.
She was not here. Okay. I'm all in favor? Aye. So carried. The date of our next meeting will be July 12th, 2021. Does everyone make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that.
Linda made the motion. Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Ed seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for.
They got me
attending
again. They got me again. They had
June
public
14th,
comment in the middle of the
2021
meeting,
our,
and I missed it
and I
again.
will see you July 12th, hopefully in person. Have a great night.
So,
So
Wait, I'm not done yet.
I have to go back to Atlantic Beach, New York now. Ridiculous.
No.
Ridiculous. I had my hand up. My hand was up.
That's not going to shut the meeting off, Ed.
My hand was up to speak.
We don't have public comment on our Zoom meetings. We have Google Forms. You can email us at plaza65@aol.com and your question will be answered.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's comments in the chat also.
At least I got an answer.
But you don't care.
That's good. So I'll have to send them a letter now. I didn't know that. No wonder I couldn't ask a question last time. I tried to ask a question last time and I couldn't. And this is why, because
That's not going to close the meetings. It's going to close me up for the Zoom.
Wow.
Text Anthony, tell him I can't close the meeting.
He can't close the Zoom meeting.
The good stuff emerges when he picks these up.
Trying to meet with us to get together a meeting with their arborist to talk about the restoration work. Frank, yes, they are trying to meet with us. So it's just a matter of the BA and myself and public service getting together to have a meeting. We're trying to do that right now. And that's the meeting I'm talking about. They're trying to meet this week. And Chris and I are trying to come up with a mutually good time we can meet this week with them. They're actually reaching out.
They're still trying to close the meeting in here. Listen to this. They can't close the meeting. This is actually kind of funny. They can't close the meeting. They're not able to close the meeting. They can't stop the meeting. They can't stop it. This is too crazy. Look, let me get somebody smarter. Here, let's get somebody smarter in there. Can I find somebody smarter to turn this off, please?
Every night I
don't want them to see that my pants are off. And the meeting. My pants are down. My pants are down. Hurry up, end the meeting. Oh my God, this is hilarious.
Did Anthony respond?
This is hilarious. They can't end the meeting.
Guys, so just be careful.
They can't end it?
I don't know. The names of the people.
What are they saying?
Guys, we're still an open mic, so this.
I probably just turn it off then if it's fire.
It's still an open mic, they said. It's open mic.
I can't end the meeting.
This is too funny.
I can't end the meeting.
He can't end the meeting.
Both houses are ours. And the problem is been empty since the fires.
I'm going to watch this play out. I'm sorry. We'll go to Hillsdale in a few minutes. I'm letting this play out. This is funny. The mayor cannot end the meeting. Oh, this is great. This is great.
The one,
He's on the phone with somebody. He's on the phone.
I can't end the meeting.
I'm dying. I'm dying. He couldn't end the meeting. That was funny. Wow.
They just called me. That's when they expect to start. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
If there are no further questions for the engineer, I don't see any. That go to Chief Francavilla for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple things. We applied for a grant and received an award of $50,950 for body-worn cameras. We looked into another grant through DOJ. However, it wasn't applicable to Hillsdale. So we anticipate ordering those cameras very shortly through this grant. It's a reimbursement grant. And I want to thank everybody for attending the torch run on last Friday to show support for our Special Olympics. I want to thank Dave Sayers who organizes that every year. So thanks, Dave. That's about all I have.
Any questions for our chief? Okay, thank you, Chief. Is the DPW, wait a minute. Yes, Mr. Steel.
Mayor, Council, I want to talk just briefly. I need your permission, I guess. In terms of the sports lighting at Centennial Field, I've been trying to replace our sports lighting with new LED fixtures for Centennial Field, which means we can reduce the fixtures as well as reduce our cost to operate those fixtures. The problem right now is that the New Jersey BPU is handing off the direct install program from themselves to the public utility carriers in New Jersey. That means that July 1st, Public Service is going to acquire the BPU program for direct install. I would like permission to file a grant application with Public Service. I got to get it in by the end of the month for grant monies for that lighting system up there at Centennial. That's all I'm asking for, is just to file a grant application with Public Service. They've asked me to do that, actually.
Chris Teachin, you're aware of this, is that right?
I am, Mayor, and I would support Mr. Tatiel's request to council with the changeover. It'd be in our best interest to apply, so we can do that by a voice resolution this evening.
And Mr. Borough Attorney, any advice in terms of how to proceed? Or
none, Mayor.
Oh.
I have no comment on how you might proceed in that. We certainly can simply, as ever, adopt a resolution by voice vote this evening if that's the council's pleasure.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, we're going to, at this point, I guess it's still fresh in everybody's head. We only had put it back to the resolutions, but we're looking to approve Mr. Statiel's proposal to, I guess the word is to negotiate with the utility so that we can continue to make progress on the ready install program, which is being transferred from BPU to PSE&G. Is that a fair assessment?
It's to make the actual grant application to PSEG. That's all it is.
Okay. So it's to make a grant application to the utility so that he can achieve what I said just a minute ago.
Chris, do you know what the amount we're applying for is?
Not yet, Chris. I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's a full grant? No, it's not a matching.
Honestly, I don't know yet. Public Service is formulating their takeover of the direct install program. It was 80%. It was 80% before for municipalities. So hopefully they will continue that as well.
80% they pick up, 20% we put in. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Second. Okay, Mr. DeRosa. Any discussion or questions for the engineer before we move ahead on this?
Chief, I apologize for the interruption, by the way.
You're forgiven. Can I have a roll call vote, Denise, on this?
Councilmember DeRosa?
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar?
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath?
Yes.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella?
Yes.
Okay. That brings us to the DPW report. Is Billy Hafler on tonight, or is someone else going to be making?
No, he's not, Mayor. He's absent this evening with duties as the fire chief.
Okay. All right. That brings us to a discussion. Council President Lundy, you had put on for discussion in-person twice a month meetings.
Yes. I had a couple of questions. I guess in September, we'll be returning to in-person meetings. There's been some discussion as to possibly changing the timing as far as back-to-back meetings. Apparently it's very difficult we have a meeting on a Tuesday and then the following day after our meeting, the next week agenda, you require the agenda for the next week. So when we have a meeting on Tuesday, everything needs to be signed, advertised, whatever it is. And then the very next day, the clerk needs to have the next week's meeting prepared. I was just wondering if, I know we had spoken about it previously, about either changing it from back-to-back weeks or changing it so that one session is a work session and one session is where we actually take action, or if there was any pleasure of the council to maybe change it from the first and second to the first and third, and I also wanted to know if once we go to in-person meetings, will we still be on Zoom?
Well, the last question I can answer easily. The BA is waiting to hear from DOGS for guidance before we make the decision as to whether we want to do a hybrid or whether we just want to go back to in-person live with the Optimum and Verizon Fios live televised. So that's still an open issue. The back-to-back and the work session, this does come up periodically. It's the pleasure of council, what it wishes to, how it wishes to meet. Sometimes depending upon the composition of council, it leans one way. Other times it leans another. It's really up to the council.
I've never been on council where we had a work session and then the following session take action. I don't know if it's productive, not productive, if it's beneficial. I'm really just trying to, alleviate the problem of having to get an agenda out the very next day after a meeting.
Well, it sounds like you have two issues there, right? Abby, you have the time issue and then the form issue. The issue of should one of the meetings be a work session versus an open.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be beneficial. I mean, we have to obviously read the agenda, be informed in order to be able to vote. And I just want to make sure that everybody has enough time. I mean, and through no fault of the clerk, I think we got 4 different agendas with, yes, slight changes, but is that because she's rushing to get an agenda out before it's actually all finalized?
Yeah. Well, discussion, Mr. Pizzella.
I remember a time when we had work sessions. So we would have one meeting was a voting meeting, and then the second meeting was a work session.
I would think it would be the other way around.
One was a work session and one was a voting session. But I still think that if you have a work session, you still have to have an agenda. Granted, it doesn't have, I don't think it has to be, I don't think it's as involved as your regular agenda is, but I still think you're going to have an agenda. What I found in the work sessions that we had in the past were that I didn't really feel they were work sessions. A work session is when we're actually going to really like sit down and discuss different things and maybe a plan and how we're going to address that plan and next steps, and really take an active role in sort of moving things along. I didn't find that to be the case when we had work sessions before. So if we're going to have a work session, then it needs to be a work session.
Yeah, so I recall a time when we did have work session also. I thought the other confinement was that we don't vote at the working session. So that leaves one meeting a month to be able to vote. And I think that kind of confines things. To have everything voted on just one day, one day in a month. Are we having the agenda the Wednesday before the Tuesday meeting are we handcuffing ourselves? I mean, does it have to be on Wednesday?
No, and it hasn't been on Wednesday, Councilman. The agenda's been coming out when we've had our regular Tuesday meeting. This one is an oddball.
Well, I thought, yeah. So I misunderstood Council President's point. I thought you had said Wednesday.
Well, Denise would be able to address this, but I think Denise tries to get the agenda out the Friday before the Tuesday, close of business Friday. She tries to get that agenda out by then for the following Tuesday. She does give us, well, first she hands it to the mayor, and then I give her any questions because I don't want to raise all questions at the meeting, at the open session, to save some time. Then it goes to the council and you have an opportunity to ask questions. Then she issues it on Friday. close of business. Sometimes we don't always get it out on Friday. Sometimes it's the weekend. But I think Denise has been doing a good job of getting it out on Friday, close of business.
Yeah,
I think we've been getting it Thursday, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, if I can jump in here.
Yeah.
So Mayor, you've asked me to give you a preview, so I get the first agenda out for the first meeting. It goes to you on Wednesday.
Right.
Then I was asked by council to give it to them on Thursday. So everyone has a chance to review it. It goes out on the website to the public on Friday. The second meeting comes, we have it on a Tuesday. The next day, I have to have the second meeting agenda out to you the next day, right after the first meeting, which makes it tough because it makes it hard for me to turn around one meeting and already have another meeting going. And then it goes out to the council on Thursday. And again, then it gets posted on the website on Friday for the public. So that second meeting is tough for me to get out an agenda when, one, I don't know what's going to be left over from the meeting before and anything new. I mean, it's usually the second meeting is shorter, but there's a lot of changes. Like tonight, did like 4 agendas for adding, changing, removing people, it's just, it's tough the second meeting.
Yeah. Well, again, will of the council, we've heard from 2 council people. Councilman Escobar.
What's the reason? Do you have to have the next agenda the following day, Mayor? What's if we can give the borough clerk a couple more days, what's the big deal?
Oh, I'm not opposed to going to, let's say, the same date that you guys get it on Thursday. It's just that it's usually falls to the BA, the clerk, and the mayor to put together the agenda. Then it's, I like to get it with the assumption that Friday it's going to go out. If you think that you don't have enough time to, given that you get it Thursday, you don't have enough time to react, then let's ask Denise to get whatever she's going to get out on Wednesday, send it to everybody. I mean, that we can work it that way, or we can do what the council president is thinking or perhaps suggesting, that we put more time between the meetings. We do them every 2 weeks as opposed to having one and then another, but that's up to the council.
And I think we also.
Like John wants to continue the.
Because I think changing stuff right now might be challenging to members of the governing body, board professionals that maybe set their schedules now for the rest of the year, and in the mid year might be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't have too much problem with it, but I'm just speaking for myself. I think we need to see what the other borough professionals have on their calendar and then also the rest of the governing body.
And I agree with John. I think that at this point, a lot of the borough professionals have set their schedules, and a lot of council members have set their schedule. But I wouldn't just do away with the idea of having a working session. If we really treat it like a working session, then we might increase communication between all of us and actually start to see many more things get addressed, and with more understanding from various members of council. And I think that it also will inform the public more as they watch a work session go on. If you're really going to take a work session seriously, and we really do, like, certain things get planned out and we pursue those items and really see that they get done, I think that would really be in our best interest as well as the town's. And that would also help Denise. Not that it's really Denise's fault, but also help Denise in getting out an agenda, because that agenda is a different type of an agenda, right? It's going to list the things that we're going to be discussing and addressing and trying to push forward.
Anyone else wish to comment?
Well,
yes, Council.
Is given the borough clerk an extra day, would that be acceptable to her for now, or what's her consensus of it?
I mean, if I can have an extra day instead of trying to get out a sample agenda to you, Mayor, on Wednesday and waiting till Thursday. I mean, it does give me an extra day. I mean, it's still a lot, but I mean, it would be better not to have it the next day. So it
Yeah.
allows me to finish up the meeting before.
What about Councilman Pizzella's idea? Anyone have a view on that?
I just would really trying to get a clarification of what a work session would be. So there would be an agenda where we would be confined to just discussing what's on the agenda, or is it a time for us to be, able to discuss whatever we want in public, which would address some of your concerns about lack of transparency?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to answer for the mayor, but I remember from the past, so there were certain things that the council was sort of addressing and pursuing. And I'll give you an example. So there might be an issue that we've been talking about for a very long time, but there hasn't been any movement on it. Having a work session really allows old business to get addressed if you're really seriously going to address it, and then new business to start to get acted upon. So if somebody had something that they really wanted to work on, that person could then put that forward. And if the rest of council is in agreement, then that becomes one of the items that go on this planning list or this sort of plan for the town. And I think it also allows for open discussion where, maybe some people are not necessarily going to agree with that particular item. For example, I think an example was the community center. I think that if we had working sessions, we probably would have had much more maybe robust conversation about a community center. And maybe other members of council might have had some other information that maybe never got out, that if it got out, it would have probably impacted some people's decisions. I don't know, but when you have a working session and everybody is engaged in dealing with those items on the working session that are in the working session, you do tend to see things move along. What I didn't like about the past was it wasn't so much a working session that was that involved members of council. It was more of like an information download from people who were working on things to the rest of council. That's not what a working session is. A working session is actively engaged conversation, discussion, and moving things along.
If I may, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Council President, so basically you would get the agenda like you did tonight. There would be no voting. So you would see everything on there and it's your time to discuss it, go through everything one by one. And then the next meeting, you get the same exact agenda and you vote. And you should know your answers by then because you discussed it at the first meeting. So it's the same exact agenda twice.
So it doesn't sound like it would be that much more productive.
But that's only because you're not, in the past, we haven't really created a working session type agenda. It really involves certain items have to be on there that we all agree to pursue, that we all agree to address, and you move it along.
Frank, I think
Have to have those on the agenda.
in an effort to move this along, I don't sense that there's a consensus to go one way or another, except I think that there's a lot of merit in what Denise is saying for the second meeting. If she has another day to send that out, that's fine. Unless there's, I see Councilman Horvath.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Yes, I've advocated for a work session for a number of years, and it's always been put down. And I think it's coming back to the front again. I think it's a great idea, especially for some of the reasons that Councilman Pizzella has expressed. We could have discussed the Bethany Center, whether or not it's suitable for our town. There's so many other things that we could have hashed out before it's coming into the public.
Hashed out. You said hashed out.
A vote without explanations and without discussion.
Well, let me, Councilman Horvath, subject to Mr. Medeo jumping in, I think the work sessions don't mean that they're not public. Work sessions are public.
No, I understand it, but we get more freedom in discussing things rather than going by a certain schedule or a certain form.
Mayor, if I may, work sessions in towns that I've worked for that have done traditional work sessions. The monthly public meeting is at the dais and in the main meeting room or council chambers. The work session meeting is generally around the conference table. The public is allowed to be there. They're regularly noticed public meetings, and parties go through the list of the things that they want to do, the things they want on the agenda, the things they want to talk about. I don't know if that was what was done in Hillsdale pre-2015, pre-Max maybe, I don't know. Some towns do it, some don't. You guys really just have to figure out if it's right for you.
Yeah, the only thing I can recall, Mark, is in 2015, we did have work sessions, but the council found them to be no different than the regular open session.
I am the
think
law.
there was a
No man's right.
acceptance of just having each meeting became a regular session. I can't give you much more history on that. I just don't recall. So listen, we got to move this along. So can I have let me put it this way. Who is in favor of going to a work session month on this? Can I go down? Has Frank being 1, Zoltan's 2.
Okay, terrific.
Okay, so let's put that on the back burner for another day. It's not getting any majority here.
Okay.
And we will go on the second meeting, Denise. Thursday is the day that they put the agenda out. Okay?
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
Before we move too quickly, the last point that Council President made about a possible hybrid of the meeting, if we don't have to discuss it now, but if what the borough administrator finds out is that we have an option of having, a Zoom and in person, I'd like to lobby for having both options. I think it'd be
A hybrid,
for the public.
a hybrid session. Yeah, I think Montvale has adopted that. Most boroughs in Hillsdale have not. They've gone. We did a little survey. The mayors and 4 of the boroughs have just gone to the old style, in person, live with TV. 1 or 2 don't know what they're doing. 1 has decided to do hybrid.
We know they don't know.
So, we'll have another opportunity to discuss this, I think, once the BA gets some information from.
Okay.
Okay.
I can keep hard for 2 hours at a time.
Councilman DeRosa.
Okay, so
I got a dick hung
the
on me 9 inches
Regional Board
long.
of Education met last week. The interim superintendent was appointed while a search is conducted for Dr. Gunderson's replacement. The interim is Daniel Fishbein. He was formerly superintendent in Ridgewood High School. It's just funny how life turns out. I graduated from Pascack Valley with Dan Fishbein. And if you told me back in high school
I lost the last
that I
2
was gonna be a councilman,
listeners.
he was going to be the superintendent, I would have
I had 2 I had 2 viewers.
Traditional graduation is going to take place. There's no limit.
I had 2 viewers and they're gone. That was it. That was it. This made him leave. This one here made him
I'm
leave.
Big Dick Black. I'm Big Dick Black. I'm Big Dick Black.
But they were talking about just doing in-person.
That's funny.
Some of their
I can keep it hard for 2 hours at a time. I'm a woman's dream. I got a dick hung on me 9 inches long.
suggested to them that maybe they should keep the hybrid if they
I
could.
can come 10 times a day.
The local board of education.
I am the law. No man's right.
That the 8th grade graduate.
Okay. Now say it.
They thankfully are also having a traditional graduation.
Okay, terrific.
Actually, Councilman Pacella and I attended the second of 3 or 4 ad hoc committee meetings with several members of the community. to discuss options for the George White School. Again, the facility is extremely old. The infrastructure is old, and there are several options that they're talking about as far as remodeling or actually replacing the building. So they've asked for members of the community to kind of weigh in on that, and we've been doing that. The Rec Commission, their June meeting,
I'm twisting up
discussed
the fat one.
Of summer events. You know, we usually have the fall festival in September.
A Kush wrap.
They're
Kush
suggesting,
wrap.
I think it's a pretty good
You
idea
can't see
that
the
maybe
wrapping.
given COVID and
Kush wrap.
you know, everybody's seeking to do things that we, instead of doing one big show in fall, we do several smaller summer events. So they're planning those out. The American Legion has suggested having had a smaller ceremony on Memorial Day in Veterans Park. They are suggesting or requesting that perhaps we forego the traditional parade because Memorial Day is a day of remembrance and solemn, and perhaps consider a parade at a different time. So we're gonna have a discussion with that about that with the Rec Commission. And that is all I have right now.
Thank you, Anthony. Councilman Escobar.
Yeah, Mayor, for the police committee, we had a relatively brief meeting. We spoke about personnel regarding a pending retirement. We also spoke about the transition going into county dispatch. And we spoke about the officer on loan, that pending monies are moving slowly through the court system due to COVID. And that was pretty much that in a nutshell. For OEM, they had a COVID wrap-up meeting last week to discuss what worked and how they can improve the borough's response for the next time. God forbid there is one. They're still working on reimbursement from FEMA for Tropical Storm Isaias. They received some money for COVID expenses from FEMA. They're working on transition to county dispatch with other borough emergency services. And they're also looking into options for a new notification system for the borough. There are others besides SwiftReach. And that's all I have.
Thank you, John. Councilman Horvath?
Yes, the fire department will be meeting this coming week and discuss some of their concerns. Also, the Historic Preservation Committee, at our last meeting, we discussed having a 100th birthday party for the town and doing a townwide event for that. So we're going to be looking for volunteers. Once the schedule comes out, or once what we want to do comes out, I will notify the council and the town, and we'll be looking for a lot of help. We want to make this happy 100th birthday for the incorporation of Hillsdale.
That's
2023, yes. It's going to be a long process. There are going to be a lot of moving pieces, so we want to make this a bang-up affair.
Okay. Council President Lundy?
Okay, the library is actually meeting right now, so I was not able to attend the library meeting. The Stony Brook meeting was postponed from last week until tomorrow. I do, Chairman Dan Sullivan is here, and I think he does have a couple of things that he'd like to say. But Environmental Commission has not met yet. So as far as the library, the summer reading program will begin tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm sorry, June 16th, and run through Wednesday, August 11th. People should sign up in person and they'll receive a tote bag, markers, as well as a reading log and some other incentives. And there'll also be a Read to Me program for non-readers, children up to 18 months who can have adults read to them. And if they have 6 books read to them, they'll also receive some prizes. So I'll give my other committee reports, I guess, next month. But if Dan Sullivan could just speak to.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Abby. Dan, you have to be unmuted. All right, go ahead.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Before I touch on a quick update in regards to membership, I just wanted to thank a few people with regards to their efforts in getting us to opening weekend in 2021. And it really was a monumental effort. So first and foremost, I'd like to thank all the members of the pool committee countless hours and thoughtfulness has gone into improving upon what we have and looking into the next phase of new revenue opportunities to help reimagine Stony Brook. I'd also like to thank the management at Stony Brook, specifically Patty Hughes and Garrett Rothschild. It's definitely a heavy lift to get this pool going and keep it running all season, and we very much appreciate their efforts. And lastly, liaison to the council, Abby Lundy. Her advice and help is not lost on the committee and myself personally. So Abby, thank you for everything and helping us get to where we are today. So we officially opened. Then it rained. So we had a bit of a delayed start. But just so you guys know, so last weekend, obviously heat wave, I think you had a lot of pent up cabin fever. According to the pool director, we had our largest 2-day attendance for a total of over 2,300 members over those 2 days. So that's in recent memory. So that was a very big deal. With regards to membership numbers and revenue, in 2019 year to date, so June 14th, we had about 950 families that had joined, bringing in a total revenue of $598,850.
Okay, terrific.
2021 year to date, we have about 1,025 families that have joined, bringing in a total revenue of $690,923. This is fantastic news. Everyone should be very excited about this. I know personally I am, as is the committee. We still are operating under certain restrictions due to COVID that, unfortunately, they really couldn't bend the rules, one of them being camps. So we're trying to expand some camp programs to allow for additional revenue that we might have lost on some other camps. But we do expect membership to continue to grow, albeit at a slower pace over the next couple weeks. And then it usually is pretty much trailing off. So it is really satisfying and gratifying for all of us to see these sort of numbers. And we've got a lot of work to go here, still a lot of season, but I wanted to give the good news to the council and welcome any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Dan.
Mayor, could I just, I don't have a question for Dan.
Yes, go right ahead.
I don't have a question, Dan, but I also want to thank you for the countless hours that you've put in as chairperson and in the director's absence. And it's very much appreciated. As a volunteer, you put in so many hours.
Thank you.
Right now without that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Pizzella.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the art event that Access for All had. I wanted to thank the members of the Access for All committee. The event was not only a positive community event, but it promoted Hillsdale. It was held in Hillsdale and at the train station, and it was just a very nice event. It not only provided access for those uniquely abled individuals to come out and enjoy the outdoors, but it also gave them access to the public to show off their artwork. And in turn, it gave us access to them and their artwork. And the artwork is still up. So if you haven't been able to get down to the train station, please do. You can still see it. And there is a brochure that is lists all the artwork, tells you a little bit about the artist, and actually is coded to show you which artwork belongs to that artist. I also wanted to thank everyone that attended for supporting the committee, and also talk about what our next, the next idea that we have. So the committee is talking about having a celebration of their unique differences. and they want to have sort of food, music, and a petting zoo. They either want to do it in late summer or early September in one of the parks or the West Lot on an afternoon on a weekend. And I say it that way because I need to come up with a date or some dates that they can choose from. I did want to ask Mark if there's any liability issues if they did have a petting zoo sort of come to them. We've done this before in Hillsdale, and I did check some of the entities that do bring the farm animals here, and they do all abide by these COVID requirements, but they also have liability insurance and that whole thing. But I did want to bring that up and did want council's opinion and input on that before they move forward with it. Again, it would be toward the end of the summer, early September. Now, I know we have our Town Day event, which I believe is in September. So I want to make sure that it's not close enough, that it's not too close to that. Can anyone give me any input, any suggestions? Is this an idea that you like?
Frank, let me suggest this in an effort to, because we have a long agenda. You're raising some good questions. And it might be best if you and the borough administrator discuss them between now and the July meeting. And it may not necessarily need council approval. Then again, it may. So it depends how heavy.
Okay.
So
I can do that.
If that's agreeable with you, I'd like to.
That's fine.
Okay.
Also, we're talking about a grant for wheelchair accessibility to the railroad station. We've been talking about that for a while, and I know of an potential Eagle Scout that's also thinking about the project. I know him very well. He's my son. So I want to make sure that we get to the right avenues to see if we can get this done. And Councilman Horvath also agreed to help us out. I don't have much to say about economic growth and development. As far as we know, Waste Management has not entered into any agreement with any developer. They did not, however, put their Hillsdale property on their documentation to the county when they were selected to be the haulers, which leads me to believe that that's a good thing, right? I mean, they would have also included that property if they intended for it to be used. There are some other property owners that wish to move forward and would like to get a better understanding of what they can do with their property. I suggested a process to the BA, but I haven't heard back yet. I also want you to keep in mind that anything moving forward, if they either use the planner who came up with the plan or the attorney, that the attorney would ask that an escrow at this point be put in place. And the town should not be paying for our professionals when it comes to any type of developer or property owner looking to start to develop or move their property along. That is something that they pay for when they need to access our professionals and when they need our professionals' advice. I've also suggested a marketing company to market the property as well as a redevelopment coordinator, but I haven't heard back on that. And the downtown revitalization is also on standby until we get the process going for the planner. And I just wanted to ask Chris if we're going to do that RFP soon, or is there any movement on that at all? Chris?
An RFP for a planner for downtown revitalization?
Yeah.
Right, as long as there's council consensus to move forward, council will just have to give me that consensus. We have the presentation. If there is a consensus amongst council, even if council gives me consensus at this moment this evening, I can have an RFP prepared for the next mayor and council meeting.
Okay. I mean, is it council's intention to move forward with that so that Chris can move forward? I don't know how you want to handle that. I mean, if you want to take a straw poll or hands or whatever. I thought that we were moving forward.
I would say that the way to do it is to have that discussion with the BA. We could put it on as a resolution for next month's meeting.
Okay. And then I wanted to also add that in addition to Anthony's report, after the meeting, it's my understanding that there were some meetings between reps of the town and the Board of Ed, during which the idea of possibly shared services regarding a potential community program were discussed. And if that's the case, I think that anyone who is evaluating the community center, the fields, the idea of a community center, doing the feasibility study, anyone who's working on that, any planner that does that also has to take into consideration the various opportunities that are available to the town. And if this is sort of a live opportunity, that since the Board of Ed seems to be approaching this new school concept and we're approaching this community center concept, that maybe both entities working together can get more than of what they wanted than less. And so I think that we really should continue discussing that option with them. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman. And then with respect to your son and the train station and the access, I think have those conversations with
I'll speak to
the BA, because I think the BA might need to touch base with NJT, just to make sure that it can proceed. Okay. That brings us to the ordinances. 21-08. This is an ordinance for adoption, an ordinance by the Borough of Hillsdale, prohibiting the operation of any class of cannabis businesses within its geographical boundaries and amending section 310-55 of the Code of the Borough of Hillsdale. There's going to be an open public hearing. I need a motion to have that public hearing on ordinance 21-08.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll now open the meeting to the public. If anyone desires to be heard regarding ordinance 21-08, please state your name, town you live in, and wait to be recognized. Once recognized, state your name and address. Okay. So, public, this is your opportunity to comment. Ms. Traeger.
Alon.
Ms. Traeger.
Okay.
Good evening, Lisa Traeger, Hillsdale, New Jersey. With the permission of the mayor and council, I would like to read a letter that I posted recently in the Potcast press because it encapsulates my thinking on the topic. It'll take about maybe not even 5 minutes. May I proceed?
Yes, as long as it's reasonably timed. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yes, okay. So, Hillsdale, like other neighboring towns, have taken proactive steps over the last 2 years to ban marijuana dispensaries in their town. In last year, what is the basis of rejecting legal marijuana, which would support both medical as well as recreational use of a legal product by consenting adults? Sounds like decisions being made are more of a knee-jerk reaction catering to unfounded stereotypical ideas of who would patronize these stores and the negative impact to the social fabric of our community, pandering to a narrow political point of view. In last year's election, 61% of all New Jersey voters affirmed wanting legalized recreational marijuana. In Bergen County, the yes votes led by 314,000. Woo, pouring rain. There are many reasons why the ballot passed, not the least of which was for social justice. People of color in particular have faced inequities in serving time and facing other economic consequences for being arrested for personal possession. But there are other benefits of legalized recreational marijuana, including the fact that many adults, regardless of race, religion, political affiliation, use and have been using marijuana for most of their adult life. Many adults prefer smoking marijuana versus drinking alcohol, a more lethal drug. the use of marijuana has also been proven to lessen the use of more addictive or prescription medication. In research conducted by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, cannabinoids have shown significant promise in basic experiments on pain. HHS.gov reports that the use of pain relievers and opioids have been proven more of a gateway drug to addiction than marijuana. And the CDC states that, quote, the majority of people who use marijuana do not go on to use other harder substances. If the concern is that having a dispensary in town will somehow increase the possibility that children under the age of 18 will have more access, research conducted by Montana State University reported to JAMA Pediatrics, that's the Journal of American Medical Associates, that there was, quote, no evidence that the legalization of medical marijuana encourages marijuana use among youth. And marijuana use among youth may actually decline after legalization for recreational purposes due to all of the regulations put into place. In a recent USA Today article published by Community Life in March 18, 2021, entitled Some Towns Reconsider Marijuana Bans, a few salient points were raised, not the least of which was that towns that opt in to allow sales or cultivation of marijuana can save residents up to 2% in local taxes. Towns like Garfield that once decried dispensaries as leading to panhandling, odors, and worse, have reversed their stance, now looking into suitable locations for the same. And as Hillsdale looks for ways to make use of the land as well as tax revenues lost by removing the waste management transfer station, it may behoove the town to consider ways to leverage legalized marijuana and reconsider the ban put into place last year by our mayor and council. In a recent letter, Mayor Rocco wrote about his concern that a tax hike is unnecessary for Hillsdale. Agreed, and having tax revenue from local marijuana businesses would lessen that need as taxes increase. According to USA Today, towns that adopt anti-marijuana laws will have to re-adopt that ordinance by 2021 or wait 5 years for another opportunity. In the meantime, dispensaries that follow state guidelines can legally set up shop elsewhere. Anyone who has traveled to states where marijuana is legal knows that going to a marijuana dispensary is more like going into a gourmet food store, where you have a personal attendant helping to guide you in your selections. Not only are there controls in place allowing only adults to enter, but there are usually provisions limiting the number of people in the store and bud keepers who will help you select the right product to meet your medical needs. Keeping dispensaries only in cities like Newark, Patterson, Passaic perpetuates racial bias and the notion that only poor neighborhoods will have these types of stores. Passaic Mayor Hector Laura cited the post-prohibition experience where bars and liquor stores, quote, disproportionately popped up in much larger numbers and somehow became a universally accepted symbol of crime-ridden, impoverished, and downtrodden communities. Today, having one or more liquor stores in a suburban town is not only acceptable, but well-regulated and considered normal. Keeping legal dispensaries out of Hillsdale and Pascack Valley will only keep illegal dealers in the business and profits in the hands of criminals. In summation, we should not let this opportunity pass. Perpetuating a myth that these stores only invite the worst types of people and put our town at risk simply denies the reality. People of every color, ethnicity, political persuasion, socioeconomic class enjoy smoking marijuana and cast their ballots to have access to this product. Denying Hillsdale residents both the tax benefits as well as local access is not democratic, nor in our town's best interest. And in summation, I came up while I was waiting to come up with an interesting fact that seniors, 55 to 64%, have increased marijuana use 455% over the last 10 years, as opposed to younger people where the use has gone down.
Thank you, Ms. Traeger. Mr. King. Jeff King.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes. The state
Hi there.
name and town of residence.
Sure thing. Jeffrey King. I'm at 24 Elizabeth Parkway in Eatontown, Monmouth County. Thanks again for allowing me to participate in your meeting this evening. I appreciate very much the spirit that you operate in, transparency and respectful. I also would again like to echo the comments of Ms. Traeger. She's really eloquent in making the case for cannabis acceptance, and I don't really know what to add. I think she did mention that senior citizens are using cannabis at a higher rate, and I will say that AARP, Retired Persons Association, put out a whole issue in their endorsement of medical cannabis to inform their members about the position they've taken and how it can benefit them. My father is a member of the American Legion, and they overwhelmingly support medical cannabis for their members. And there's a lot of information on their web presence that they've endorsed the research they've done. So that's veterans and that's senior citizens. Definitely helps people of all ages, children, epileptic people that have all kinds of conditions. That's the medical use. So I think that if nothing else, you would carve out space for a medical dispensary for the people who are sick and suffering. That would be compassionate and very progressive of you. I think I would say that in New Jersey, we do endorse cannabis rights for our residents. And I think that also includes home growing. So I don't understand why the governor decided just to allow for commercial market, but not individual rights. I think that would be something you would want to advocate for on our behalf. So I thank you for your consideration of the patients and the individual rights. And I wish you success in your approach to this. I hope that for the sake of the residents and the community that we come to a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Elon Schiffline. You have your hand up.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Could you also let me use my video?
I don't see why not.
Oh, thank you.
But keep it down to under 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. I am addressing the ordinance to ban marijuana dispensaries in Hillsdale. My name is Elon Schifflin, and I live in Hillsdale. I am an attorney and a former prosecutor at a district attorney's office. Besides being in the Special Victims Bureau and the Federal Crimes Trial Bureaus, I was also in the Racketeering Bureau. But one of my responsibilities was to work on a wiretap of an international drug smuggling cartel. So believe me when I tell you, I understand the fear around allowing dispensaries. In the legal profession, we call these concerns the secondary effects of such businesses, that if you allow a dispensary, it will increase crime. But as a former member of law enforcement, let me be clear, this is just not true. These were the same tired arguments used to needlessly wage a war on alcohol 100 years ago. And I want to ask this council if any of you have actually visited or even seen pictures of the business you are banning. The business that if you ban, you're not allowed to collect on any of the tax revenue. Let me describe two stores for you. One is like a doctor's office, plain on the outside, but for the signage. There's an exterior room where a security guard checks your ID, letting only a limited number of people into the second room at once. Items are behind a counter only. There are no free samples or tastings of any kind allowed. Every customer has an individual clerk, and you can only purchase a set quantity of the item. But that's okay, because no matter how much you take of this item, you can't die. Now I want you to picture a building with flashing lights on the outside, big signs listing the prices of different kinds of drugs. And anyone can walk into these stores, even kids. And the kids can grab the drugs right there off the shelves. And when you walk in, it's aisle after aisle after aisle of nothing but drugs. And you could buy as much drugs as you want because the government hasn't set a limit. And the drugs come in all different sizes, including big enough for a whole party. But be careful, because if you take too much of this drug, you'll die. And I can tell you, as a former special victims prosecutor, it's also one of the leading causes of domestic violence. Now, the nice doctor's office I described is a dispensary, and the flashy store of drugs is Bottle King. And I have no problem with Bottle King, but this is a culture war or cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, but this is a war, an attack against the freedom of Americans, plain and simple. And it's popular on both sides of the aisle and past Hillsdale overwhelmingly, and you know it will be reversed. And that's why it's a bad political move. That's why conservatives in states like Colorado, Maine, and Massachusetts dares to run on turning back the clocks and making dispensaries legal again. This council and the mayor ran on a Republican line, and many people claim to be libertarians. And as libertarians, you should be opposed to increased regulation on American businesses. As Republicans, you should be for American businesses coming into our downtown and revitalizing it. Conservative voices like Lauren Boebert in Colorado and Matt Gaetz in Florida have spoken in favor of this, but instead, you've raised the taxes on us. So if for nothing else, do this for your own political futures, because we know that this is going to be overturned. And someone is going to run against you, and they're going to cite this waste of money as evidence. Don't make our town lose money over something that's going to be reversed. And I once again strongly ask the council and the mayor to reconsider and vote no on the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shefflin. Lefty Grimes.
Good evening, council. Can I also be seen, please?
That's up to you. I think you can control your own video.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. My name is Edward Lefty Grimes. I'm with sativacross.org. We're a 501c3 here in New Jersey advocating for disabled rights and for...
Mr. Grimes, what town do you live in?
I'm in East Hanover.
Okay.
And we advocate for cannabis patients' rights and disabled rights. And cannabis patients need your help. We're getting taxed by the government 7%. The towns that are accepting it are giving us a 2% tax. The medicine that we're buying is not covered by insurance. And how would you feel if they were taxing your medicine, your heart medicine, or your insulin, we're trying to lower drug costs, and here we are, medical patients being taxed and being, we're getting moldy medicine from these big, huge corporations coming in here. These billionaires are coming in here, building their industry on the backs of the sick and the dying. So yeah, we need some help. We don't need you to ban our medicine. We have people in wheelchairs that are sick and suffering. There are people that really, you're disrupting the supply chain of medicine to people that really need it. And we need to put the last first. People in wheelchairs. If you ever spent a day in a wheelchair, you know what it's like. It's not easy. People say, "Oh, you'll have delivery." That's another charge we have to pay if you're in a wheelchair. People in wheelchairs want to take part. They want to be able to go to a dispensary and look around, and they don't want to have to go far. My friend is in an island right now, Long Island, and he has to drive an hour to get his medicine. He's a vet. It's like we have to do better for everybody. And the tax benefits you would get, you'd get some tax benefits, but if you're going to take that tax, I would suggest that you, and I call it a wheelchair tax. I call it a tax on cancer, a tax on multiple sclerosis. That's what it is. Let's face it. And if you take that tax, it's a wheelchair tax. You talked about the train station before. Well, I think the train station is actually accessible. Maybe you're talking about getting on the train. But right across the street from there, you have all these businesses at one step that if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get into those businesses. Why don't you use that tax money that you can get, or not, but you have tax money. We want representation for that taxation. If you're going to tax wheelchairs, give us some wheelchair access in those businesses in your town. You see the problem everywhere, and now that maybe you haven't seen it, now you're not going to unsee it because it's everywhere in New Jersey. In Hudson County, it's really bad. It's really bad in your county too. We need to do better for people in wheelchairs. And I ask every council that we go to spend one day in a wheelchair. I'll do it with you. And believe me, it's not going to be a day in the park. It's very hard for patients, and we need your help. We need every bit of help we can get These taxes are killing us, and we need home grow. We need you to advocate for home grow for us, please. In Trenton, we need all the help we can get. So please do not stigmatize God's medicine. You could sell man-made marijuana in the pharmacies. You're not going to ban that. That's still going to be sold. Your synthetic marijuana is still going to be sold in all your pharmacies, whether you ban it or not. That's not ending. It's Marinol and Dronabinol. We're not all up in arms about that, though. God's medicine we stigmatize. That I don't understand. And I'll leave it with this. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. And by the way, those ramps could be made with Legos. By the way, Councilman Pizzella, those ramps could be made with Legos. Your son can make those with Legos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Denise, do you see anybody else on the?
Mr. Traeger?
If no, let Lisa go if no one else is.
Sure. Yeah,
No, it's Lanny. It's my husband. It's my husband speaking, not me.
Okay. Mr. Traeger?
Yes, when I read that article, I immediately went out and got a marijuana card. I really did. And I went to a dispensary today, and let me tell you, they are buttoned down. You couldn't tell from the outside that it was a dispensary or anything else. Yes, it had the name of the company, but that's all it had. And when you got inside, you were checked for 2 sets of picture ID, including your marijuana card. And then you came in and there were a bud tender. I mean, it was a very civilized thing. And that's, one of their rules, they make you sign a code of conduct. And one of their rules is no loitering, is no opening up your product, your medicine until you've gotten home. I mean, there are just so many rules from them, from the state, that it's very buttoned down. And I think our town should realize that. And other people have spoken very eloquently about the different facts involved. I'll just add one. Cigarettes, 480,000 people per year die. 41,000 from secondhand smoke exposure. Yet we sell it in stores where kids come to buy candy. So explain why you're turning down a dispensary and you're letting kids be near a drug that is
Lethal.
Used as directed will kill you.
What about the alcohol?
And yeah, I mean, alcohol, we can go on, but.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Traeger. Denise, do you see anyone else who's got a hand up?
Lauren Walter.
Lauren.
I'm not raising my hand. I was just giving a reaction to the previous statement made.
Okay, no problem. If there are no more comments, Denise, no more?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion that the public hearing on ordinance 21-08 be closed, that it be resolved that this ordinance was posted on the bulletin board on which public notices are customarily posted and published in the Ridgewood News. Copies of said ordinance were made available to the general public. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now I need a motion if we're going to move ahead to adopt ordinance 21-08.
Motion.
Second.
That brings us to discussion. Council members, do you wish to discuss any aspect of this?
I do, please.
Council President Lundy.
If I could just get confirmation from the borough attorney, I just want to make sure that I have this straight in my mind. If we opt out now, at time we can opt in.
Absolutely.
And if we opt in now, we are locked into everything for 5 years.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you do nothing now, your
locked in for a 5-year period. And if any of the 6 classes of licensees open, even if later you determine that they should not be permitted in the borough, they will be grandfathered and they will exist forever.
And
so,
I would,
if I may, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I don't know if everybody saw in the local section of the Record this morning, there was an article which told you that over half of the towns in Bergen County have adopted exactly this ordinance. They have not done that because they hate marijuana. They have done that because they do not want to see all 6 classes of operations become automatically lawful on August 22nd. If you adopt this ordinance, which was recommended by the League of Municipalities, as well as JIF and MEL, you are free to discuss any aspect of this and change it at any time that you want. It would be as simple as passing an ordinance. As I described it before, the purpose of this is to create a safe harbor against automatic approval of all 6 classes while you have a chance to actually consider what makes sense or doesn't make sense. So I thought it was timely today that the front page of the Record told you that, again, with almost by August 22nd, so with over 2 months left before the automatic August 22nd approval date, 50% of the towns in Bergen County have already adopted this. Number one. Number two, contrary to what I think I heard someone mention, no, Garfield adopted exactly this ordinance. In fact, there are many, many websites you can go on and read all 38 or so towns that adopted this ordinance. And so far, in no town has the ordinance failed, although there may be towns that are not going to adopt it, I guess. But Garfield has adopted it, Lodi's adopted it, Woodcliff Lakes adopted it, towns from southern Bergen to northern Bergen. And it's, of course, entirely up to the council. But I think the issue is not one of pro or con for marijuana. I think the issue is, do you want it to become automatically approved on August 22nd, or do you want to be able to control it?
Mr. Mayor.
Of course, it's up to the council.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, Mr. Teachin.
I would agree with the borough attorney. I think tonight's, if the council is to pass this ordinance, that it gives the borough the ample opportunity to do its due diligence on the 6 classes and to weigh the pros and cons of each as to what benefit certain tax revenue would bring to the borough. The Municipal Managers Association is exploring those 6 classes and what the tax revenue could be potentially to the borough. Of course, this is a council decision, and I will be able to prepare in the next few months, a juxtaposition of what those 6 classes are and what they potentially bring benefit to the borough.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to contribute to the discussion? Yeah, I see Frank Pizzella.
Yeah, I just also think that whenever there is a new use or a really drastic change like this, I think that a town needs to put some planning into it and really needs to understand what the 6 uses are and what they would allow, and as much as possible, this gives us the time to really allow maybe some other experts in the field to come and give us some information on it, as well as the fact that, we have a redevelopment area, we have a downtown, we have farmland, we have, not saying that we don't have opportunity to take advantage of this, but we do. And so I think that we should think about it, and we should plan, and we should do that in the same way that we would for any other type of redevelopment or any type of situation that requires a lot of thought. So I don't see it as just a blanket no. I see it as it gives us time to think it through as to what is best for Hillsdale.
Anyone else want to add to the discussion? Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Denise, can I have a roll call on this?
Councilmember DeRosa,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Councilmember Escobar,
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath,
Yes.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella,
Yes.
Now therefore be it resolved, this ordinance is adopted by a 5-0 vote, and the Borough Clerk is authorized to advertise the same according to law. Brings us to the adoption of Ordinance 21-09, an ordinance to amend and supplement Ordinance 09-01, Chapter 138, entitled Fees, and Chapter 71 on the Swimming Pool Commission. Do I have a motion to open this to public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Now, I'll open the meeting to the public. If anyone desires to be heard regarding ordinance 21-09, state your name, wait to be recognized, and give your address. So, does anyone member from the public want to comment on this? Denise, I don't see anyone. How about you?
not,
No. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion that the public hearing on ordinance 21-09 be closed, that it be resolved that this ordinance was posted on the bulletin board on which public notices are customarily posted and published in the Ridgewood News. Copies of said ordinance were made available to the general public. We have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 21-09.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I need a motion to adopt ordinance 21-09.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. Can we move to a roll call vote, please?
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella,
Yes.
Councilmember DeRosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar,
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Yes.
Okay, now therefore be it resolved, this ordinance is adopted by a 5-0 vote, and the Borough Clerk is authorized to advertise the same according to law. That brings us to the adoption of ordinance 21-10. This is a capital ordinance of the Borough of Hillsdale, authorizing the acquisition of communication and other equipment in connection with transitioning the borough's emergency services communications to the Borough County Dispatch and Trunk Radio System, appropriating therefore the sum of approximately $325,000 and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from the borough's capital improvement fund. Do we have a motion to open this to public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so now I'll open this meeting to the public. If anyone desires to be heard regarding ordinance 21-10, please state your name, wait to be recognized, and state your address for the record. Any members of the public wish to comment? Denise, I don't see anyone's hand.
Don't.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion that the public hearing on ordinance 21-10 be closed and that it be resolved that this ordinance was posted on the bulletin board on which public notices are customarily posted and published in the Ridgewood News. Copies of said ordinance were made available to the general public. Motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 21.
Motion to close.
Second.
Roll call, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Looking for a motion now to adopt ordinance 21-10.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. Denise, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember DeRosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar,
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath,
Yes.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella.
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Now therefore be it resolved that this ordinance is adopted by a 5-0 vote and the Borough Clerk is authorized to advertise the same according to law. We now come to the introduction of ordinance 21-11. This is a capital ordinance of the Borough of Hillsdale, authorizing various public improvements and acquisitions in, by, and for the borough, appropriating therefore the sum of $1,121,909 and providing that such sum be appropriated, be raised from the borough's capital improvement fund and from various grants. Be it resolved that ordinance 21-11 is now past the first reading and that said ordinance be further considered for final passage at the meeting of the Mayor and Council on July 13th. And at such time and place, all persons interested will be given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. The clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish said ordinance in the Ridgewood News once, at least 1 week prior to said hearing, with the notice of its introduction and of the time and place when and where said ordinance would be considered for final passage. Do I have a motion for introduction?
Motion to introduce.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I just have a question, I guess, questions for the borough administrator on this one.
Sure, Mayor.
But what's called for in this ordinance is a feasibility study that will cost us approximately $100,000, or not, will cost us up to, or we're authorizing up to $100,000. I would feel better about that if I knew what the outcome of our discussions were and research about the Bethany.
Having spoken with the executive director at the Bethany Center located in Washington Township, is essentially they are willing to take the borough on for activities on either a schedule of fees or on a schedule of a la carte fees where we could pay by the use. In speaking with the director there, he would prefer that the borough offer memberships to Hillsdale families that would be offset by the municipality, enabling them to join the Bethany Center for the use of their pool, their gym, their classes, and whatnot. The fees that he outlined are not necessarily excessive, but he did indicate that we would really have exclusive use of the center in year 1 and year 1.5. After that, once the center becomes fully operational, he could not commit us to, excessive gym use or exclusive gym use moving forward. In terms of senior programs, typically what they would do is they would rent the rooms to us by the square foot, and we would pay what the going market rate is per square foot on commercial property. I think that the borough would have a more of a chance in this working should we partner with another municipality, for example, Washington Township. However, my inquiries to the township have gone unanswered. In terms of using the center, I don't think necessarily a bad idea, but would require a lot of scheduling through the recreation department, and essentially would kind of just be a shifting of fees from the Board of Education to the Bethany Center. I did meet with the newly appointed borough administrator for Westwood. I explored multiple shared service opportunities with her, one of them being their community center. Miss Ayer told me that once she gets her feet wet, she'd get back to me on those shared service opportunities. So that's my update, Mayor, in terms of potential shared services on a community center.
Thank you, Chris. So it just sounds like there's the initial feelings on the Bethany aren't too warm and fuzzy to what we want to accomplish, but more discussion might need to be held to see if we can get them to be more more.
Absolutely, Mayor. I think my only reservation in the Bethany Center would be moving forward. Of course, they're a nonprofit, but they're operating as a business. And I would want to be sure that the reason that we're kind of, in my opinion, the reason that the council is moving towards the building of a community center is that we're not reliant on the public schools and the use of their facilities. My fear is that this gives us the same option that the public schools does, just at a different venue.
Okay. And so you'll try to just get a little more meat to the bones and then come back to us at this point?
Yes, I hope Bob Tovo, the administrator for Washington Township, he owes me a phone call, so I'll nag him a little bit. And then Miss Air over in Westwood, she also owes me a phone call. We had our meeting late last week. Both seem receptive to shared services with the borough. So I'll be sure to push those forward as a priority of this council.
Okay. And on the feasibility studies themselves, I think I said this at another earlier council meeting. We got 2 studies done so far on the concept of what to do with the fields. One from Mazer, one from Statiel and Associates. And then we have 1 report done on sites for a community center, albeit a much simpler community center than I think what is being contemplated. That report was done in final by Chris Statiel. Is that right?
That's correct, Mayor.
So this would be the 2nd study on a community center and the 3rd study on the fields. If we went
Correct.
ahead.
Should council want to pursue that? Yes. This just gives the opportunity to have the funding in place. Should council want to move sooner than later, rather than have to sit for a separate capital ordinance at a later date.
Right. So this is like a broad authorization, so to speak. You'll be coming back to us at a later date when you actually want to put it before the council.
Correct. When council is prepared to move forward, having this introduced this evening and adopted at the only meeting in July puts those funds in place for use, at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, can I just provide some input?
Sure, go ahead, Frank.
When you get someone to do this feasibility study, they are going to give you proposals, so you can vote on that. You'll know how much you're going to spend. But more importantly, if the Bethany Center is truly an opportunity and they know what they're doing, they will also look into the Bethany Center. They should, and they should also comment on whether that is a good opportunity for the town and why, or if it's not and why not. That's what the feasibility study is supposed to take into consideration. Remember, it looks at the feasibility of doing this relative to the needs of the town and the assets of the town. So after looking into all of that, they should then provide you with recommendations based on all your opportunities. And the Bethany Center and the Board of Ed and things like that, they impact your programming, not necessarily the structure, but your programming. When they look at the assets of the town, that might impact the size of your building or what your building actually needs.
And Frank, and then I pose this question to you and to the borough administrator. Is there not a concern if we have the party who's doing the feasibility study look at the issues of when and where and how to build a community center versus is the Bethany or Westwoods Community Center or some other community center adaptable for us? So there seems to be like a conflict because the individual who we might get has a natural inclination, I would think, because he'd be compensated far more lucratively to go ahead with the building of a community center than they would with a simple, this is another option for us.
I don't agree with that, because the person who's doing this, if they're a licensed planner, as they should be, they are under an obligation to represent you. And they're also under an obligation, and I would think they would want to make sure that they got the town the best programming for a community program that they could possibly find. So they want to try to get you as much as possible. So if that involves programming in shared services that you would otherwise not get or have to pay more money for, they would definitely see that as an opportunity to get you or to get the town more. So I wouldn't, I don't necessarily think that they would get paid more if you constructed some immense building somewhere, as opposed to them putting the time and effort into getting you the programming that you need and maybe utilizing buildings that you already have that are assets and sprucing them up, including maybe creating another building that isn't as big, or these are just ideas. I mean, I don't know, but that person is a licensed professional and they're obligated to represent the town as best as possible, like any other licensed professional would be. So that's my answer.
Maybe this is a question for the borough administrator. When a feasibility study is done and focused, let's say there's two parts, the community center, and then you're going to do another feasibility study on the fields. But on the community center, would the results of this study have what the community center should look like, what the prices are, where it's going to be located? Is that's going to be in this feasibility study as well, Chris?
What it really comes down to, Mayor, is what the scope, how far the council wants to take the scope of work. Ultimately, we can hire someone to come in and tell us what it costs to build a certain size building, and they can put that together based on what borough property. Most likely we're going to want to build, if we build something, we want to build it on borough property. We don't want to incur a cost to buy a piece of property and build something. I think what you're speaking of in terms of programming and what type of offerings come into play is separate, because ultimately I think we would need to know before we build if we have the capacity, the staff capacity, or what those costs would be to implement a fully operational community center, open, traditional business hours or after business hours. So I think what it comes down to is what type of scope the council wants to see in the implementation of a community center in the borough.
If you follow the scope that if you follow the scope that I drafted and provided to Chris, you'll see that you will get a feasibility study that, like I said, takes into consideration your needs, your assets, and your opportunities. It should also provide you with, whoever's doing this, they should also know to do a space analysis, which means they look at the various land in your town and what's available, and that will tell them how much space you have. They should also provide you with cost estimates and a draft budget, as well as a schedule. And if they recommend one property over the other, they should provide an explanation of why, and you should also end up with a floor plan and a concept plan with a proposed structure as well.
And I hear what you're saying. I just want to make sure that the person who's advising us on the feasibility of building versus outsourcing is different than the person who, if the council decides to build and hire someone to guide us through that portion of the process, that person is different than the person who did the feasibility study.
It will be, because you'll have an architect who guides you through the construction of any type of building that you create. And the planner is the person who does the feasibility study. the planner is the person who it should be a planner who is well-informed and should have on staff someone also involved in this type of programming. Usually they are former BAs of boards of ed, because it's a similar type of programming that schools use. So for example, schools have gyms and they have fields and they have after school sessions and theater and all that stuff. So usually what a planning firm will have on staff is a person who understands about that programming and also understands what types of programming can also raise money and what types of programs are money losers. So it's two separate people. It's an architect that teaches you through the construction. It's a planner that does all of those studies.
Okay. All right. All right. And let's all keep in mind that this capital ordinance is just it's an authorization of up to $100,000, and the BA will be coming back and we can have some further discussions on this, down the road. Okay. Where have we been? We have had a motion, we've had a second, we've had discussion. Brings us to a roll call vote. To introduce.
Councilmember Escobar,
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath,
Yes.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella,
Yes.
Councilmember DeRosa.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to our consent agenda for resolutions. Denise, you want to help me here? You want to take over?
Sure.
Thank you, Denise.
Resolution 21134 is a resolution authorizing the agreement with the Hillsdale Board of Education for security camera system access. Resolution 21135 is a resolution authorizing the mayor and borough clerk to extend the janitorial contract. Resolution 21136 is a resolution authorizing refund of a tax overpayment for 62 Buff Lane. Resolution 21137 is the payment of bills. Resolution 21138 is a resolution hiring full-time laborer Stephen Cook for the Department of Public Works. Resolution 21139 is a resolution authorizing the borough clerk to advertise for bids for the 2021 road program. Resolution 21140 is a resolution to allow the approval to submit a grant application and execute a grant agreement with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the reconstruction of Horizon Terrace, Mountain View Terrace, Shadyside Lane, and Alpine Terrace. Resolution 21141 is a resolution to approve the plenary retail consumption license renewal for Damani Grill for doing business as Bensi of Hillsdale for 2021-2022. 21142 is a resolution to approve the plenary retail distribution license renewal for Hillsdale Bottle King for 2021-2022. 21143 is a resolution to approve the plenary retail consumption license renewal for Four Palms LLC of Hillsdale for 2021-2022. Resolution 21144 is a resolution to approve the plenary retail consumption license renewal for Asabuco of Hillsdale for 2021-2022. Resolution 21145 is a resolution to approve the plenary retail distribution license renewal for ShopRite Liquors of Hillsdale for 2021-2022. Resolution 21146 is a resolution to approve the plenary retail consumption license renewal for Palisades Park Bar and Liquor and Delicatessen of Hillsdale for 2021-2022. Resolution 21147 is a resolution authorizing the person-to-person transfer of a retail consumption license. Resolution 21148 is a resolution to temporarily permit the sale of goods on the public sidewalks by existing merchants of the Borough of Hillsdale. Resolution 21149 is a resolution hiring temporary seasonal laborer Brendan Falconer for the Department of Public Works. Resolution 21150 is a resolution authorizing a refund of a homestead credit for 311 Raymond Court. Resolution 21151 is a resolution approving the purchase of radio communication equipment and accessories for the Borough of Hillsdale through the New Jersey State contract pricing. Resolution 21152 is a resolution approving the purchase of radio communication equipment and accessories for the Borough of Hillsdale through the Bergen County Co-op contract pricing.
Denise, thank you so much. You can take a deep breath now. And just,
Imagine if we were Hoboken with all the bars in Hoboken. We'd be here until tomorrow night.
Yeah. So would any council member like any of these pulled for a separate vote and discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Councilwoman. Which one would you like to pull?
21148.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we'll vote first on all the resolutions in the consent agenda with the exception of 21148, which is the one to temporarily permit the sale of goods on the public sidewalk by existing merchants. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Horvath,
Yes.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella,
Yes.
Councilmember DeRosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us back to 21148. Abby?
I just had a question. I thought that this resolution was on the agenda when we were originally going to have an event on the 19th. So I just didn't know if this is something that we're extending, even though we're not having the event, and for how long. I just am not really aware of what it is.
That's correct, Council President Lundy. So when we were initially, I'm losing the word here, starting
Considering.
considering a public event, community event on June 19th in the Veterans Park downtown area. We had discussed the sale of goods on the public sidewalk. Since that event didn't come to fruition, the borough clerk and I decided that it would be in the best interest of the downtown area to still consider the sale of goods through the summer months for the downtown businesses. So that's why it's on for council's consideration this evening.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on this resolution? Okay, not seeing any. So do I have a motion to adopt 21148?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella,
Yes.
Councilmember DeRosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar,
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved. That brings us to the second public comment period.
Mayor, before we do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Before we do that, can we just go back to, because I have a different resolution. You may be aware I pulled a resolution, and I just wanted to know if it would be the proper time to have a discussion about it. I pulled from our original agenda. I had pulled a resolution that came off the agenda.
Right. Yeah, and it's not on this agenda.
No, it's not. But that's why I'm asking if we could have a discussion regarding what it pertained to.
Well, are you proposing to add a resolution now?
I'm proposing that in lieu of the resolution was to authorize the administrator and clerk to advertise for an RFP for field feasibility studies. That was what the resolution was.
Right.
Have a discussion with and see what the consensus of the council was, as we've previously discussed, rather than doing an RFP, awarding an unfair and open contract.
Well, it was on, it was pulled. Now you want to put it back on, but
I don't want to put it back on. I don't want to do an RFP.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what are you proposing?
I'm proposing that we, rather than do an RFP for a field feasibility study, we take into consideration that we want to do a field feasibility study, as well as included in the scope of that study should be the possibility, as we were just previously talking about, possibly building a community center. We had previously talked about DMR being the right person or the right firm to do this study. So rather than go to RFP, I'm proposing to see if the consensus of the council is to do an unfair and open and award a contract to DMR to do the study.
Well, how does the council feel about that?
How does Mark feel about that?
Mark, you're okay.
Thank you. Well, it's legal. I mean, if the question is, can you do a resolution to hire or appoint any professional you want? The answer, of course, is yes. It would be, at this point, I think Councilwoman is suggesting without advertising, without, it would be exactly as you appoint your borough engineer, exactly as you appoint your tax attorney or your borough attorney or other attorneys. It's lawful. And so certainly if the council chooses to do that, they can do that. I don't know if Council President has had an answer to her question. Is there the support to do that? But the question is certainly a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this issue came up for some discussion at the time that we just a couple of meetings ago. And one of the points being raised at that time was, would the borough benefit from having more than just DMR apply? DMR has helped us on the industrial development plan, on the redevelopment plan. I think there is an advantage to having the RFP process. There is no rush to move ahead. I think we should get the best. And tonight we're just passing we're passing the capital ordinance, or passing the capital ordinance to authorize the BA to move ahead in that direction. It's an authorization of up to $100,000. It's a lot of money. I would rather do it through a RFP process, but
I don't think
if that's not the council's, will, and they want to just pick a firm, I guess DMR, I don't advise it, but that's the council's judgment.
So I have a certain confidence level in DMR, in what they've done for the borough so far. And, now them having all that history, that information, I think it would serve us well if they were to examine, the fields, the community center, and also what Councilman Pasella was referring to is there some sort of synergy between what the school is looking to do, what the Board of Education is trying to do at George White School, and what we're trying to do with the community center? I think they're a good match for taking that on. So I would support that.
Councilman DeRosa, who did the first study on the fields?
Mazer Consultants?
They are our borough planner, are they not?
Yes.
They are familiar with the concept of the fields, are they not?
Only the fields, though. They haven't done, the copious background in, that DMR has done in redevelopment and, talking about revitalization too.
Right. I mean, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar effort here, are we not?
Right.
Do you not think that it is wise to at least get several possible vendors to weigh in on this and give us different views, including our own borough planner?
Well, like I said, I think DMR has demonstrated their knowledge of the borough, and I think we'd realize some economies as well with them, not starting from scratch. So, I would like to move. We've agreed to borrow the money. I would like to move the project further, and I think they're a sound firm to do that.
Well, there's no doubt that they're legitimate and sound. I was not 100% pleased with the outcome on the redevelopment plan. And I think in view of the fact that Mazer has been our borough planner for years, is well familiar with the town, has assisted us with affordable housing, and that this is, they know the borough as well or better than DMR. Mazer actually is more familiar at this point with the athletic field situation than DMR. I think we run the risk of perception here. We have been in bed with DMR. I think it's
I think in
How is
bed,
it any-
in bed is a poor choice of words, I think.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. But we have been closely associated with DMR.
Well, they've been doing good work for us. That's what they've been doing.
On the study of the redevelopment plan. But I think in this case, given the size, my view would be, go and get the best possible opinions that we can. But again, that's up to council.
I also have the confidence as well as along the lines of Councilman DeRosa that I have every confidence that DMR will do the right thing. I think that we raised taxes on the residents based on us getting these fields done and possibly getting a center done, a community center. So I just think in the interest of time, I would be confident in going along with DMR.
Well, no, I agree with you on the time is of importance, but the time necessary to look at this and the possible benefits you might get from opening it up is worth it for the extra 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But that's just my view.
I concur with the mayor.
Well, I'm sorry, one more thing, Borough Council had made an analogy that, it's like appointing another professional. So when we look at engineers, borough attorneys, auditors, bond, we have experience with some of them and we continue our relationship with them when comes time to renew with most of them because they're doing a good job for us. So, along those lines, I think it's appropriate.
That's what I was going to say as well. Mayor, you alluded to, well, we've been in bed with DMR. How is it any different with us continuing to do business with Mazer or other firms that we've been associated with? I don't see the difference.
That's a fair question. I think that we paid a lot more to DMR in the one project that we have than we did last year or the year before. The last time we used Mazer intensively was to do our affordable housing plan. Mazer worked with the borough attorney and with the mayor at the time and the council at the time. They know the town well. There may be others that we can benefit from. For example, the planner that is used at the planning board, Burgess and Associates. So I've been a proponent of getting a competition to get the best ideas. I hear what you're saying, but I don't think, I just don't think it looks good to the public. And in my 39 years of doing business, you want to give the impression and the reality that you're doing this on the up and up, and you're doing it fairly, and you're getting the best bids, advice. So, but
all anybody has to do is look at DMR's website and see how well versed they are in what we're looking to do and in the scope of what would be in the proposal. And in my opinion, they're the best out there right now to satisfy our needs.
I wouldn't be qualified to tell you who's the best. I would want to see, and I would want to see the bids come in and have different views be presented before me and my fellow council members. Again, I just say it's a big decision, and you want to go through the process correctly. There's no urgency to rush through this. As someone said, we started to tax our residents on this. That's true. We at least can do it right.
Well, I don't think that we're doing it incorrectly or not right. The borough attorney concurred that it's perfectly legal. And so why would it be incorrect?
I'm not saying incorrect, not illegally, Council President. I'm saying from a business perspective, when you are looking to get the best price, when you're looking to get the best ideas, it has nothing to do with the legality of it. It's a business.
I think we've heard from 4 of the 5 council people.
So, how does the council, do you want to propose a resolution, Council President Lundy?
I would like to propose a resolution authorizing the administrator to obtain necessary documents and enter into a contract with DMR for the purpose of doing a feasibility study for the fields. And
just for the field?
Well, for the fields, and included in the scope would be taking into consideration the possibility of building a community center.
So it's a feasibility study on both topics, what to do with the fields. And see, this is another thing. We're in putting this forward. I was hoping that if we follow the normal process, the BA would come back to us with the specifications for what he would ask the person who's going to do the feasibility study to look at. Now we're doing it on the fly at a sort of last minute arrangement here, and it's just not the proper way to do business.
Well, it was on the agenda prior to that, just in a different way. It's still the same scope and the same specifications would have had to go into an RFP.
Right, and had it stayed on, had that resolution stayed on the agenda, and I was happy to see it pulled by you, I was intending to ask the borough administrator more details on the specifications. And if he could not provide it, then I was going to carry that resolution over to the July meeting to give him more time. But there seems to be a rush here to get DMR appointed.
Well, a rush to move the project along.
It's a rush to move these capital projects along.
I don't see why there's a rush to move them along, period.
I think as Councilman Escobar said, July, we start taxing the residents. I would like to see something come to fruition this year, whether it's, getting the fields done and having a plan for the community center. I don't, it's not fair to tax the residents and do nothing.
Right, that's exactly what I said. Mr. Borough Administrator, if we did an RFP process, what time frame do you think that would require? Because I hear the Councilwoman wants to get something done by the end of the year.
Well, if council were to authorize RFPs this evening, in order for me to get documents together, I'd say that's 2 weeks. Ample time for a response. 6 weeks. How that times into the next available mayor and council meeting, and then an award, 6, 8. We're probably looking at 3 months.
Right, not July and probably not August, but more likely the approval would be September 7th.
Sure.
Right, so that would still be in the third quarter of this year. Councilwoman, I'm not sure I buy your argument, but again, I don't have to.
I recommend that we go to an RFP. There's an old saying, it's better to be 10 minutes late to heaven than 1 minute early to hell. This gives us time to plan. This gives us time to maneuver. This gives us time to get the information that we need.
Okay. Well, we have a proposal on the floor from the council president to move ahead. So why don't we?
Was that a motion?
Abby, you're motioning this, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I was thinking that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We've had a discussion, I believe. So do a roll call vote, Denise.
Council President Lundy,
Yes.
Councilmember Pizzella,
Abstain.
Councilmember DeRosa,
Yes.
Councilmember Escobar,
Yes.
Councilmember Horvath.
No.
So what is it? 3-1 abstention.
Correct.
So the motion passes. Okay. Council, sorry. So that brings us to public comment, second public comment period. Anyone would like to address the council at this point? Raise your hand and you will be recognized. Mr. DeJoseph.
Good evening, Mayor Jonathan DeJoseph, Hillsdale, New Jersey. Just give me a call. Is Hillsdale currently and in the past this year applying for the Division of Highway Traffic Safety grants? For example, like click it or ticket, distracted driver grants?
I can't answer that off the top of my head. Chris, do you have an answer for Mr. DeJoseph?
None have come across my desk from the police department. I see that Chief Francavilla is on. If he's, Denise, if you could unmute the chief. I think, Chief, we've discussed this briefly before as to the pros and cons of those grants.
Yeah, the click it or ticket grant, only certain communities received them. Certain towns received them based on, I guess, if they received the grant prior. So they kind of spread it around the state. So that's what happens with click it or ticket grant. But that's the only one I know of right now that was most recent.
And I think we did discuss, Chief, that sometimes based on when those grants are offered, for example, Super Bowl or St. Patrick's Day or whatnot, that sometimes they're hard to fill from the department.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else
Mayor,
wish?
Mayor, just a comment in regards to that. I know we had specific personnel who were handling that before, and I believe the personnel are still there. So just a little surprising if Hillsdale's not applying for those grants. I think in the matter of public safety, it's something that should be evaluated again to apply for those grants. There's no cost to apply for it, and obviously it benefits the public.
Thank you.
I have another question for you in regards to the road paving that was discussed this evening. Just want to see if all the roads are going to be restored by the end of this year, or what type of time frame there is for doing that.
No, I think it was clear from the discussion that PSE&G will be ripping up more roads. And I thought I heard the engineer say that the repaving is not going to be done until 2022.
That's correct, Mayor. So what's identified from PSE&G as Project OR 305 and Project 311, which has been, we've received partial reimbursement so far, or not reimbursement, partial payment. So yes, the engineer is correct. The borough will wait most likely until PSE&G is complete in their project to use our purchasing power to repave those roads in next year's road program.
The question for that then, Mayor.
But the borough engineer, Mayor, just if I may, has identified, I believe it's 4 or 5 streets which are not impacted by PSE&G, which encompass this year's road program.
Correct, right. Mr. DeJoseph, you were ending on something, right?
Yep. Just to clarify now, with all the traffic observers out there, is that going to impact the town's road restoration this year as far as using, and next year, using additional funds that could have been used to restore the roads for the residents?
I don't understand your question. I don't know, Mr. BA, do you understand?
I don't, Mayor. If he could restate it, I'd be happy to answer him.
With all the traffic control on the job sites now, especially on quieter roads and their dead ends, is that going to impact negatively or utilize funds that could have been used to restore the roads?
Well, Mayor, in first part to that question, I don't believe the chief, as the chief law enforcement officer, assigns traffic duties to streets of those nature. I think the chief uses his years of experience in assigning officers. Well, secondly, no, the money that's being given to the borough for replacement does not include payment for the repaving of those projects. For outside duty. Traditionally, as I'm told, historically, the borough tries not to assign as many officers to a municipal program. So I don't think any of the millions of dollars that PSE&G is giving to the borough would really go towards traffic detail.
Mayor, just for clarification then, so are part of the PSE&G funds being used for traffic control, or is that separate fund, or are those separate funds?
Look, the traffic control that PSE&G pays for, I believe, it comes out of PSE&G's pocket, does not come out of the borough's pocket. Then it's third party duty, as I understand it, goes to the overtime of the police, but it doesn't come out of the borough's pocket. It comes out of PSE&G's pocket. And it could be late in the hour, and maybe I'm missing the question, but I
just want to confirm that taxpayer or roads are not being paved because we're paying for traffic control. That's my question for the PSE&G project.
I don't see how that, I don't agree with, I don't see that happening.
Okay. Then the other question is, now when PSE&G's contractor was parking at Stony Brook, the town received funds. Now they're parking in the west lot and the other commuter lots. Is Hillsdale being compensated from the contractor for that parking of trucks and vehicles and equipment?
Mayor, I'm all for answering a couple of questions from residents, but this is just supposed to be a comment, not a Q&A session.
Yes, I also agree with that.
I agree.
Right. I'll leave it up to, in any public comment period, any council member or the mayor is allowed to respond back. I'd have to, I don't know. We were compensating the people who were storing their equipment in Stony Brook. You say that you've seen trucks being stored at other positions, other lots. I haven't, but that could just be, I just haven't seen it. The BA would be the only one who could answer whether we're being compensated.
As far as I'm aware, Mayor, the west lot has not been utilized. If it had, it was used as a staging period as they were moving out of Stony Brook to a new location. I believe, in speaking with Lieutenant McLaughlin, that they're going to be storing some pipe down next to the library, which is not library property, but borough property. And for the short amount of period of time that it's be there, in my discretion, Mayor, I haven't charged them for that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Denise, do you see any other hands raised?
Mr. Grimes?
Mr. Grimes. I don't see
Can you
him.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, now
thank you. My name is Edward Lefty Grimes. I'm with sativacross.org. We're a 501c3 advocating for disabled rights and cannabis patients' rights. I live in East Hanover. I believe your ordinance you just passed about cannabis lacks compassion for the sick and the dying. I believe you can do better. I believe this council can do a lot better. There's zero wheelchair access. I see the beautiful brickwork on the sidewalks, and it really is nice. It's beautiful. But then you look a few feet away, and there's these ugly steps if you're in a wheelchair. A step is a wall if you're in a wheelchair. And it's ugly. So you have these beautiful bricks, and then there's ugliness. Why couldn't you fix the ugliness that would help somebody's life that's suffering? But no. No, you'll make them suffer. At a pharmacy, by the way, you have a pharmacy that you did not compel to put a wheelchair access in. You know, they're breaking the law. They can't even take Medicaid if they're a pharmacy. I don't think they know that. I don't even know if they fixed it yet. Last time I seen, there was still a step there, and a lot of pharmacies I see leave the steps, and it's shocking that where all the steps I see, especially pharmacies, doctors' offices, but I see it all over in your town. So yeah, I can prove you have no compassion because you have no wheelchair access. You never passed an ordinance to fix that. You talk about all the paving and all that stuff. What about the stuff that's going to affect sick people's lives? My friend Jeff advocated from his deathbed. He literally took part from his deathbed. For years, disabled people have been asking for online meetings online church, online school, online work. So for the past 14 months, we got all that. We got all that stuff. And now a lot of towns are taking it away. And they're saying, oh, we can't do that anymore. What do you mean you can't do it anymore? For 14 months, you did it for healthy people. Now you can't do it for disabled people that are asking for it, that have a physical ailment that can't make it to a council meeting? We need more compassion in this world, in this state, in this city, anywhere, around you. You got to put the last first. Your ordinance is terrible, and your wheelchair access is terrible. Yeah, I'm calling you out because it's terrible, and I'm sick of it. And you're making us go back. It's just disgusting. I see it all over New Jersey. I've been to hundreds of council meetings. I would hope that you keep these council meetings at least a hybrid for the sick and the dying at least. Show them that you care that much. I mean, you got disabled vets that are suffering, that can't get their medicine. What are you doing for them? Everybody complains that, oh, we care about the vets. I mean, do you have wheelchair access to all your schools? I see a few steps on the back of your schools. I see a lot of schools with one ramp going in. Are all your schools completely accessible where a child in a wheelchair is not a fire hazard? Bayonne High School, I went to a couple of weeks ago, and I was a fire hazard in my wheelchair because there was only one way in, and then outside the auditorium was all steps. So in a fire, and Union City, I was in Union City, police station. I was a fire hazard in a police station. We got to do better. You're the government. You have to lead us. Make some deals with these businesses to put some wheelchair ramps in. You had a chance to get a cannabis tax. You had a chance to get a wheelchair tax. Well, now you spend money on it. You should spend money and fix that. It's terrible. Spend a day in a wheelchair, and I'll do it with you. I will absolutely do it with you. I'll spend a day in a wheelchair, and we'll go around and see what we can't do. It's awful. I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Anyone else? Denise? I don't see anyone.
Don't either.
Okay, so I'll close that second public comment period, bringing us to council commentaries. Councilman DeRosa?
At the last Board of Education meeting, I simply thanked Dr. Gunderson for his service on behalf of the borough. And then I also thanked him personally for providing a safe and nurturing environment for my kids. No matter how you feel about his tenure, he was at the helm during some triumphs, some tragedies and controversies for the district, but he dedicated himself to doing what he thought was best. And I appreciate that. Was pleased to recognize Pride Month to raise awareness for the LGBTQ community and support inclusiveness and acceptance in Hillsdale. Want to recognize that the Pascack Valley varsity baseball team won the state semifinals today, and they move on to the state finals. It's a pretty big accomplishment. And I don't believe we have another meeting before the 4th of July, so I just want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Anthony. Councilman Escobar?
I want to offer my condolences to the family of Timmy Rice. He was a Hackensack fire lieutenant. He recently died of cancer a couple days ago. He was 42 years old. He had a wife and 2 kids. He was everybody who knew him, and it's a tragic loss to Bergen County and the fire service.
Thank you, Councilman. Council President Lundy?
I echo all of the comments of Councilman DeRosa, and I would also like to wish Kim Hafler, our former police matron and dispatcher, good luck in her future endeavors after her 23-year career. She has left the borough of Hillsdale, and I just want to wish her the best of luck and thank her for her service.
Thank you. Councilman Pizzella?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about Pride, and I struggled with what to say, but I found myself confronted with a personal survey that I had to do today, that I needed to show my behaviors and motivators to this professional coach that I retained. And I found myself answering the questions, but every time I went to answer the question, I saw myself answering the question the way I wanted to appear and not necessarily the way that I am. So if I saw something that would make me appear aggressive or competitive, then that's the way I wanted to go. But that wasn't necessarily how I felt in answering the question. So, and then they said to be brutally honest with yourself. In that, it gave me, it allowed me to think that the survey was being provided for my best interest, and to getting an understanding of where I would be most happy. And I was still struggling with it. So I believe that most of us struggle to understand who we are. And it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to gain that awareness, and even more to accept what we figured out. I also think it takes a lot of courage to be who you are. And if you're lucky to succeed at all that, then there's no better reason to celebrate the freedom to be yourself. We should indeed keep calm in the face of difference and live our lives in a state of inclusion and wonder at the diversity of humanity. I wanted to wish everybody a very happy 4th of July, as well as a happy Juneteenth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Horvath?
I have no comment other than to thank all the people who turned out for Memorial Day to pay respect to our departed veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. I said I would address a question about the LGBTQ Pride Proclamation. I've always preferred to view our nation and local community as a large melting pot, coming from many backgrounds, but unified as one nation under God, with justice for all. And our nation was founded on words that soared with the principles of the Enlightenment philosophers. They stressed the inherent equality of all citizens and their rights. But often the nation failed to live up to these words. And that should not invalidate allegiance to those principles or to our constitutional framework. It should really inspire us to stamp out wrongful discrimination and injustice that victimizes any resident based on identity characteristics, race, religion, ethnic background, age, gender, sexual preferences. With Independence Day approaching, I thought this was the appropriate unifying message that I, as the mayor, should convey. I was concerned that the adoption of a Pride Month proclamation would encourage demands or requests from others for government advocacy and entangle the borough in unproductive or divisive discussions. And this is in no way meant to be disrespectful of the underlying concerns that lead many of us to support LGBTQ Pride proclamations, such as the one adopted by the council tonight, and to which I will attest with my signature once this meeting is over. I'm completely comfortable with the role of proclaiming defense of the LGBT community from unlawful discrimination and bias. But I'm also aware that assuming the role of advocate for the LGBTQ community or any other group can be a source of division among some members of our community, either based on religious or other grounds. I decided, therefore, as the mayor, that a mayoral proclamation issued during Pride Month should best emphasize a unifying message, stressing the respect and the rights that all segments of our community are owed. What this nation needs now more than ever is messages that stress our common interests and a reaffirmation of the guiding principles upon which we were founded. So if there are no further questions or no comments, and I think we've gone through them all, I'd like there's no closed session.